ABC News' new documentary series, Boston Med, takes us behind the scenes at 3 of Boston's top hospitals. And each week, we'll give you an inside look at the life or death situations that patients and staff face. Here's a preview of a difficult transplant case one of the show's doctors encounters in tonight's episode.
Marvin's here hoping that we can help him with heart transplant. How are you feeling today compared to yesterday?
Almost 1,000% better.
He's pretty sick. If he doesn't get a heart transplant soon, Marvin will likely die. So today we're gonna meet and we're gonna discuss his case and hopefully we can list him. This is my heart for you to get you through this weekend.
Okay.
All right, you hold on to that. Keep that close by. Marvin has a condition called amyloidosis, and not only is his heart affected, but many of his other organs are affected. And it's going to be difficult to convince my colleagues just to list him, period. For those of you who haven't heard about Mr. Marvin Pollitt, he's a 55-year-old who was referred to us from an outside facility for evaluation for cardiac transplant. He has a history of primary amyloidosis. He's been seen at this point by our hematologists, endocrinologists. My hope today is that we can come to a conclusion and either get him listed today.
So Tommy, what do you think?
Well, so that, at the outset, I'd say he looks better in person than he does on paper. He's a pretty robust guy. I would say that there's no smoking gun right now. The liver is probably the highest on the list in terms of concern. I don't expect that this is going to contraindicate a transplantation.
Go ahead and list him as a 1A.
This is great news. Great news. We all just met. We've gone over your biopsy results. We're listing you for heart transplant today.
And joining us now is Dr. Kim Parks from Mass General in Boston. Dr. Parks, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, as we just saw on that clip, you were very close with your patient, Marvin Pollitt. Is that typical when you're dealing with a heart transplant patient?
Yeah, I did get very close to the Pollitt family, and you'll see in tonight's episode how easy that was. The Pollitts are very special people. They are kind, loving, warm-hearted people. But my relationship with Marvin wasn't much different than many of the relationships I have with patients who are waiting for transplants. I think that fostering the physician-patient relationship really is a crucial part of overall care for patients who are facing life and death really every day. These patients don't know at each moment whether they're going to live sometimes beyond the next hour. And it's really important for them to trust their physician team.
In Marvin's case, how difficult was it to get him listed as a transplant candidate?
It was difficult to get Marvin listed, and that's really for two reasons. There were two challenges with Marvin's case. One is he was very ill when he arrived at Mass General, and we knew that if we didn't get him listed quickly and get him transplanted quickly, he would likely not survive. So the most challenging part really is trying to get all of the testing completed in time to get him listed. Frequently, transplant listing requires lots of testing that can take weeks to complete. And what I had to do is lobby my colleagues and convince them that non-urgent tests actually were urgent in this case, and we completed an evaluation really in 2 days that would ordinarily take 3 weeks to a couple of months. The second thing that was challenging about Marvin is that he has a condition called amyloidosis. Amyloidosis is a condition that affects not only the heart, but virtually all tissues in the body. There are only a few people with Marvin's condition who will actually qualify for a heart transplant. That makes the evaluation process much more difficult, because what we have to determine is if we give Marvin a heart, is he going to survive the transplant? And in Marvin's case, he passed all of those tests.
All right, now a lot of your patients are very ill and some of them don't make it. How serious is the emotional toll on care providers who see patients who are terminally ill all the time?
Yeah, it can take quite an emotional toll on caretakers, and I think that actually is very underappreciated by the public. But I think most of us who go into this field, into subspecialties where you're dealing with people who have terminal illnesses, we learn ways to make it a positive experience. And we know that if we can't restore health, if we can't restore life by, for example, giving the patient a heart transplant, we can help the family and the patient through the dying process and help them resolve at the end of life and perhaps help them deal with it in a graceful manner.
Dr. Parks, we have a clip of Marvin who struggled with his insurance company in order to visit Mass General. Let's listen to that.
Marvin was supposed to come here 3 weeks ago, and I got a call that the insurance company didn't want to pay for his visit. He and his wife had plane tickets to come here on a Sunday night, and on Saturday they canceled their trip. If Marvin would have been here, we could have listed him then, and we wouldn't be where we are now. So if this guy dies because his insurance company wouldn't approve a visit, that's awful.
That has to be so frustrating because it says if he dies, his insurance wouldn't approve a visit. How frustrating is that for you?
It is frustrating, and unfortunately it's not uncommon. And Marvin had actually been scheduled to visit us several weeks before his arrival, and when he didn't show up, I called him and said, "No, Marvin, where are you? We're waiting for you." And he said, "Well, actually my insurance company didn't approve the visit. We had to cancel our flight, and I don't know if I'll be able to come." So the next few weeks, people spent tireless efforts trying to get his insurance company to approve his visit. And what's so frustrating is in patients who are as sick as Marvin, every moment counts. Every day that he's not listed for a heart transplant is another day that he lost.
Absolutely. I want to ask you something on a personal level and change gears a little bit. There's a big change for you in this episode because you move out of your apartment where you lived across the street from Mass General. Was it difficult to let go and move away?
Oh goodness, during the episode while they were filming me, I was in training still, so I was a fellow and I was in my final year of training, and I really needed to be close to the hospital so that I could respond to emergencies quickly. But it was difficult that at any time of the day I could look out my window and look at my job. So it's certainly been a therapeutic move for me, and it was a kind of a break that I needed to regain some of my own life back.
All right, and we're almost out of time, but what are you doing now?
So now I continue to practice at Mass General as an attending transplant cardiologist, and I have been so greatly affected by my relationships with patients that it's inspired me to write about my experiences.
Right.
And so I'll have a book coming out.
And you have a website
about,
you mentioned as well. What's the website?
Yeah, so you can learn about heart transplant, learn how to be a donor by going to www.drparks.org. Doctor is spelled out.
Thank you so much, Dr. Parks. And of course, don't miss more of Dr. Parks' story on Boston Med tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC.